that we enjoy today that we take so much for granted. What prompted you to decide, okay, I'm just going to pick up my roots and I'm going to head out and I'm going to go to North America? That's a big jump.
It is. It is. I'll say it was for my children, right? Because we had great jobs back in Nigeria, middle class, so we're not doing too badly. But you get to a point where you've worked so hard and you really look into the future and you say, um, what would the future look like for my children in an environment like this? Nigeria is a great country with so much potential, like you all know. Probably like everyone knows about Nigeria, right? Everyone knows about
Right?
such a great country with so much potential, but it was getting harder and harder as professionals to really like have the quality of life that you wanted there, right? And so it was time for us to move. And then I had my last child because I'm a mom of three. I had my daughter, and then when I got back to work after maternity leave, for some reason I was burnt out. So I would go to work and I just couldn't work. Like, you get my point? There was no zeal to work.
Wait a minute. You could be fascinated by your work. You could sit and stare at it for hours.
Yeah, I was just like, I don't know, I couldn't just do anything. I was just burnt out. There was no more desire to work. I don't know why. And then I was like, something has got to change. Maybe I need a new job. And then I had some friends who had been moving to Canada for years, and I never asked them what they were going to do there. And someone came, I was like, I'm going to Canada again. I was like, you know what? Maybe this is a change I need just to rejig my career, to plan a better life for my children and all of that. And then, I convinced my husband. He didn't really want to come. He didn't think it was a good idea.
how, how did you make it his idea? I want to
Ah,
know.
good, good. What I did was, he was like, I have a great job here. And I was like, yes, you do. But I was like, look at the economy. When you look everything, most of, like a lot of the world economies, you can kind of like, match it against how they're doing with the dollar, right? US dollar. And so, we're making all this money, but every time I did mental math and converted my money to dollars, I was like, not looking good.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that could be
I was
kind
like,
of depressing.
honey, like if this continues, this money is gonna be worthless at some point in time, right? So, I kind of, positioned like that and said, like, let's give the kids a good life. We go to Canada, we become citizens, great education, free healthcare. Like, who would say no to that? And it's such a safe country too, right? So,
I just, oh my gosh, I think that's really an incredibly brave thing to do. First and foremost, you don't speak English as your native tongue, and yet your English is really very, very proficient. And of course, it has to be if you're going to be in business. But
yeah.
as a woman-owned business, how tough is it to be a leader in your industry and a leader in your business? Are you challenged? Tell me about some of those
Yeah, I
challenges.
would, just to address the thing about like native tongue, right? So Nigeria has over 750 languages, so it's kind of hard to pick one language that everyone speaks, or else
Oh
we're
my
going to go
goodness.
around. You can't communicate with each other, right? And so Nigeria was a former part of the British Empire, right? And so
Right?
by being part of that empire, Nigerians actually do speak English as their lingua franca. So it is a first. Most Nigerians actually have to learn English, and that's like the way you communicate. And then there's the other language. So depending on where you are from the country, so you'd have two languages or three, depending on what you speak, right? But everyone has got to learn English in some shape or form because that's how you're going to learn in school, how you're going to communicate along with your mother tongue. So most Nigerians would speak English like in their homes, like day to day.
So it
Yeah,
is spoken in the home from the time the kids are
yeah,
born. You're
yeah.
speaking
When
English to
they're
them.
born,
What
exactly.
what other common language is spoken? Obviously, you want to keep a sense of your own sense of culture,
Yeah.
and not to say that being on part of the British Empire was not was not maintaining your culture, but clearly, there are unbelievable differences in the culture. So, how are you able to maintain that?
Yeah, so it's kind of hard, tough to be honest. Like, there's three major languages of all the many languages. There's three major ones. There's Igbo, there's Yoruba, Hausa. Those are the biggest tribal groups in Nigeria. So, most of families try to teach their kids that. But to be honest, like some of the languages are kind of dying because most people tend to speak English. So families do try, but at the end of the day, somehow that starts to every generation it kind of gets less and less of people speaking that language.
And I can relate to that because, I remember asking my grandmother, you know, why didn't speak Russian in the home. And, we think of Ukrainian language as different, and it is different than the Russian language, but she's had a very abrupt answer for me, which I wasn't prepared for. She goes, "We come to America, we speak English." That was it. I'm like, okay, but there could be some native dishes, some things that, because I really felt that sense of I wanted to be part of my own heritage. What do
Mhm.
you miss most about being back in Nigeria?
Oh, the I'll say the food. I mean, I do get to eat the food here in Canada, but it's expensive, right?
Right.
The food and the parties, like we're known for parties. I can tell you, like I miss a good Nigerian party.
A good Nigerian party. What does that look like?
Lots of music, really nice clothes. So like if someone is getting married, we're gonna make like the same clothes, like not the same style, but there's like, oh, this is the fabric we're gonna use, and we make these elaborate dresses. There's lots of good food, lots of music, lots of
Vibrant
parties.
colors I think about all the vibrant colors, that are coming to mind, and the music and the fantastic time. How long does a typical wedding last in Nigeria? I talked to some of my Indian friends and they're like, well, that goes for like a week. And I'm like, what?
But there'll be two weddings actually. So there'll be two. There'll be what we call the traditional wedding, which is based on your culture within Nigeria. So you would have that for one day, and then most Nigerians are either Christian or Muslim,
Or
and then
Muslim?
there'll be the religious ceremony. And for those who don't do any of those, they'll have like a regular civic ceremony in the court, and then there'll be like a reception after.
Nice. Okay. So not too much different than here.
Yeah,
There's a lot of that.
yeah.
Um, Growing up in your family, what was your favorite thing to cook with your mom?
I love beans for some reason. Beans is not people's favorite foods, but I really, really like beans. And I ate a lot of it, and I would make it with my mom, or she'll have me make it. So that was like my favorite thing to ever cook.
Oh my goodness. You have three children. How do you manage, your balance this work-life balance thing? You're running a company. Yeah, you've got a family, you've got a husband. How do you keep this all going?
It can be challenging because you have to make sacrifices and trade-offs, right? Because at the end of the day, like your family is important, right? Like especially the kids, they're only here with you. They're only with you for just a little while. Like they're gonna grow
Oh,
and
it's
leave
so
the nest.
true. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. My
So
daughter just bought her first home, and it's like, uh,
wow, that must be
it seems
exciting.
like yesterday that I was holding her as the baby, right? And
Yeah.
she's now got her own life and her own, starting her own family. And it does. Somebody once gave me an expression of boom, womb, zoom, tomb, to just literally say, this is your life.
Wow, I'm going to note that down. Yeah.
So,
So, yeah, with the kids, there's trade-offs, right? So when we moved, my kids were all young. They were all under 7. So I moved here with
wow. Okay,
them.
so that would make it a little easier for them to adapt to a new
Yeah,
life,
yeah,
right?
exactly. They were 7, 5, and 2. So when they moved here, we had to, take that time to get jobs and let them settle, right? Because it wasn't easy. Like, they had to get used to the climate, had to get used to how different things were.
It's
And
cold
so
in Canada, okay?
it is very, actually, we should, it's freezing. It's
Right? I
freezing.
mean, you go from a country that has got lots and lots, you don't jackets, what are jackets, right?
Oh,
To
yeah.
now we got to have layers, and you're like, "Mama, I didn't sign up for this one."
I tell you, right? So, helping them settle, I know that. So it took like, and then now the kids, they're a bit more independent. Like 4 years after, they are more independent. They don't really talk to their mom every time. They don't really need me all of the time, right? They have their devices and already have formed their own personality. So it was now I had a little bit more time on my hand, and I was like, it's time for me to go do my business, because I've been doing this pro bono for a long time, like really mentoring and coaching people just whenever I had the time. But now that my kids are a bit older, right, I did have the time to do this. But I'm also still mindful because um
Of course.
wearing a lot of hats, it can be very, very challenging. So what it means is that I get less sleep. I'm probably like the one who gets the least amount of sleep in the house,
You
because
know, and you bring up a really good point. Now, Pamela, um, you were talking about, we make sacrifices, but we as women, I think, generally sacrifice ourselves first, right?
yeah,
The kids need us, the husband needs us, the business needs us. When do you have time to take care of you?
yeah, yeah, you can say that again, because I think that's one of the things I'm promising myself to say next year. I've got to do better. Like I was talking to one of my friends last night. I said, I have to be honest, I'm a self-confessed workaholic. It's a problem.
Well, and that's what we do. Listen, when you're an entrepreneur, I'm going to ask you a question. As an entrepreneur, how many days do you take off?
None.
None. And even when you're on vacation and supposed to be enjoying yourself, you're still on your computer and you're still working, aren't you?
Yep, yep. My friends, I recently went to Greece for 9 days with my friends, and I brought out the laptop at my, and they're like, "You came with a laptop?" My God, like, did you ever stop? Because nobody came with a device, not one. It was just the phones, right? But I came with my laptop, and I was constantly on it like every day.
Yeah, it's hard. The expression of it if your business can run without you, you've got a business. If your business can't run without you, you've got a job. Where do
Exactly.
you where do you fit in there? Where do you fit
Oh,
in
I,
that
I
comment?
guess I still have a job. I'll be honest. Like, and I agree. Like, what I see myself as a startup, right? Like, my actual company as it is still in its first year, right? So it's kind of like
This is your best year?
yeah,
2023 is your best year?
yeah, my first year. So
Fantastic.
we're really in growth, like when in that stage where you're trying to define what this company is about. Like you're trying to, really shape what the culture is about, what you stand for, what the brand, right? Like so trying to set that foundation so that when it starts to go into growth phase and you hire. Because even though I don't like have like a a core team, I do have like freelancers that do, a little bit of this and a little bit of that, right? But we need like like this is the point where you kind of set the standard, the structure, so that when you start to hire people, they understand where we're coming from, what we're trying to do, and then they can take that and run with it.
I think I have heard this also that the hardest job that you have in running your organization is hiring the right people. What do you say about that?
I would tell you, like, I think that's where I've been challenged. Um,
Yeah.
like for like, like what I try to do is outsource things that I know I don't want to do, right? Like, and things I'm not best suited for, right? Like things like social media, like, PR, like, having an
Yeah,
agreement.
you hire people to stay in their own lanes and to
Yeah,
do the things
exactly,
for you
right?
to
But you're
exactly.
right. Yeah,
But it's hard to not like be involved with it and say I want it this way or I've got to have it that way, and all of a
exactly.
sudden you feel pulled in so many directions.
Yeah,
So
exactly. So it's one of the biggest fears, right? Like you have. But I'll tell you, I have a background in entrepreneurship, right, and innovation from
I
Queensbridge.
love that. Now, tell me what I saw this. You have a master's in innovation and entrepreneurship.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't even know they had degrees in such a thing. Tell me more about this. What made you go, "Oh yeah, that," because I know how technical you are, but the innovation and entrepreneurship is highly, it's extreme left
Yeah,
brain stuff, right?
exactly.
And you're spending most of your career on the right brain of technology and financials, and we're going to get into that in just a bit. But what made you decide, "Oh, you know what? That one's for me."
I'll tell you, just like everything I do, it always starts with like a Google search. Like someone asked me, "How do you get in technology?" And I said, "I watched a movie, and I thought technology was going to change the world like 20 years ago, and I decided to do it." And so with innovation and entrepreneurship, like I always had like side hustles, but they were always what they were, like side hustle, nothing too serious, right?
Okay.
But moving to Canada, I definitely like kids. I was like, it was time for me to, get a master's degree, and I could go
Oh
do
my
an
God.
MBA.
I'm like dying here. Okay. You move, you're in a completely different country, completely different environment and culture. picked a very nice one, by the way, with the Canadians, but husband, children, oh yeah, let's just go off to college now.
I
Let's
know.
go pick up a
People think I'm
degree.
crazy, and I do think I'm crazy too, for sure. Like there's always goals, right? So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do my master's, but I don't want to do an MBA because an MBA is basically like I do an MBA and I start to think like, oh, I want to get a leadership role, and I start to hustle, like like really like sell myself. But I was like, I really want to get a master's that also empowers me to make more impact, right? I could be an entrepreneur within a company, but that doesn't really drive me, right? I definitely want to be an entrepreneur, right? Was very, very interested in that. And I started to look into what could I learn? How can I learn entrepreneurship? I mean, I was an entrepreneur, like small stuff, but I was like, how can I like what masters can I do that makes the most sense? If I'm going to dedicate 1 year to reading, it better be something I could use myself when I leave school.
Right.
I don't want to
Something
have
that's
a resume.
marketable, something
Yeah,
that you can monetize.
exactly. I was like, I don't want to have to, like, I mean, I'm going to be looking for a job, but I was like, I don't want to be tied to the outcomes of I got the master's, now I got to get a job. Like, I will get a job, but I want a master's that could really allow me open my eyes to what the opportunities are, what are good businesses, and all of that. So I went there. Fantastic program. I can tell you, like, that program, even before education went virtual in COVID, like, when
Right.
COVID, everybody's, that program was already set up to be a virtual program because they said you can't take entrepreneurs and keep them in the school. That's not what they do their
Oh
best.
yeah, you're not going to see
No,
them sitting in a classroom.
yeah, doing letting what,
Entrepreneurship
like, yeah,
means you're very active, you're out in the field, you're doing, I'll
yeah,
sit for an hour and I'll be in the Zoom room, but that, or two
yeah,
hours, but
exactly. It was That's how the program
otherwise it
was. Like,
couldn't.
we would be in Kingston, Ontario. So it's in Kingston. The school is in Kingston, Queen's University. Yay! You will be there for like 16 days, and then the next thing is like, for the next 3 or 4 months or 5 months, you're out there like, doing stuff that's innovative, right? And then you can touch base after like a few months, 10 days at school. But like there was obviously like actual virtual classes throughout the period. But it's like go immerse yourself in real world stuff.
And you did, you absolutely did.
Yeah.
Now, you have worked on technology and fintech from digital automation like financial apps or cash apps or traveling or trading platforms or payment services. How did you use that to now organize in a way that would take you on a path to what you're doing today?
Yeah, great question. Great question, Linda.
Thank
So
you.
I tell people something, right? Like, every like when you look back, right? Sometimes like we tend to kind of look for, but when you look back, like you start to see like some of the things that you did in the past that kind of set you up for where you are, right?
Sure,
Um,
sure.
so by working in delivery, like by working in project delivery, and also even being a product manager at a point in time, you really understand strategy. You understand about, like, objectives, about goals. You also understand about macro and micro economical factors and all of that, how they drive the products that we build, the decisions we make, and when we decide like what feature is more valuable for a customer than X, and also like where should we prioritize, right? So that we can make more money, right? So even though I'm a tech person, I've been also at that strategic
Now,
level, even though I do tactical stuff.
I think there's another question deep within that. Okay. See, we all know how to go backwards. So when we hear, reverse engineer something. So if you want to figure out how to do something, think about the end in sight, right? Think about the end goal and then work your way backwards. What you're talking about is going, I see the spatial picture out here, and we're going to take this step, this step, this step, this step. I can't even wrap my head around that. How do you get into that mindset to be able to go through that process? Because you're matching, what is marketable, what would be more successful. So you know that you're going to be doing some tripwire, or you're going to do some kind of testing in this. How does this all happen? You have to use a process. What is that?
So I'll say, like, this is where experience comes, right? Some things I've been in 18 years in technology, but like I mentioned, like not just core technology where I face the computer and code and twinkling with hardware. Like I've also been at the technology space where it's tactical, it's like, sorry, strategic, right? We're talking
Sure.
about all of that stuff, right? So understanding the why, understanding objectives, because
Okay.
no matter what technology sits behind anything that we deliver, there's an actual user or there's an actual impact to people, right? They don't care about what technology you use.
No, they don't care.
They don't care.
It's got to be simple,
Yeah,
right?
it could even be the old, like it could be even an old mainframe and they don't know, as long as it's giving them value, right? So I've
Right.
just really been in that space. Like sometimes, like when people ask me, I'm like, I can't really articulate it because I've done it for so long, and that's just how my brain is wired.
Right, right, right. No, and you also have decided that the way that you're going to do this, the way that you would practically do this, you build a business around this. So now let's talk about Scrum.
Yeah, thank
What is
you.
Scrum?
Okay, so people know
Where does
about
that word come from anyway?
rugby, if you wouldn't
Rugby,
believe it. Yeah,
like
rugby.
a scrimmage.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
You know,
So
when a scrimmage, I think about people battling it out,
yep,
and the
yep,
winners are going to march to the end of the field and gain a
yeah.
point. Is
It's
this the same
actually
thing?
Yeah, it's actually from rugby. So the word comes from rugby, and it's all about how teams work together. So when the term was developed, they were like, okay, I think this sounds like what the rugby team does. So let's pull that word from there, right? So
Cool. Okay.
agile. So
Very
yeah, exactly.
very strategic, right?
Yes. So if we think about the world of project management, it's been around for a long time, like nothing new there. I
Right.
understand.
Project. I mean, I was in the tech market for years back in the
Mhm.
last decade, right?
You still even
Last century, let's be honest. So and so project management was always around. We had project managers in almost everything that we were doing because we were working with some very large corporations. But things have advanced way beyond that because now in terms of, accessibility and things that people want, the minute we pick up our phone, we're looking at, an app that we can make our life easier or do something that makes it a little bit different. how
Mhm.
how is Scrum used now in the languages that are used to develop these applications?
Yeah, so awesome, right? So like, project management always going to be there, but the question is, in the world that we live in today, right, where things are rapidly changing, like you have an app and the next minute it's something else, right?
Right.
The companies need to be able to release products faster, right? Before it would take like a year or 2 years for you to change one phone to the next, right? Like before you saw the
Oh my
latest phone.
God. And that's like, a year is like 1 year in dog years, right? It's
Yeah,
like 7 years. A
yeah.
lot of things can happen in 1 year.
Exactly. Exactly. But now, like before you know it, like you buy one phone and in 3 months it's outdated, or like you get an app and it's changed, right? So the world that we live in needs to be businesses need to be innovative. They need to be able to deliver products faster. Otherwise, the market would move and customer trends would change, right?
Well,
So
yeah, because we're
yeah,
fickle. If it doesn't work, then we move on to
of
something
course.
else. So
Yeah.
how does
Attention span is really short these days, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So agile, so when we talk about agile project management, so now we leave the old project management, we say agile, like the ability to be flexible to
Right.
meet demand. So agile project management looks at a way of being able to deliver um value to customers faster in a way that you can be flexible if you need to change. The old project management approach was not able to change quickly, right? And that's
Well,
where
it was, let's back it up so we don't lose our viewers.
Mhm.
Explain it just a little bit about how it used to be. I mean,
Okay,
the
yeah, I'll do that.
lines and
So
lines and lines and
back
lines
in
of
back
code.
in the day, like what you would do as a project manager is we called it waterfall. So it was literally like a waterfall. So you needed to finish a particular stage of the project. So like if you wanted to launch a new program, right, it would be like let's complete all the analysis and see what's out there in the market. How do you want to differentiate ourselves? And then you do the analysis, then you go say, okay, now that we've done all the analysis, let's go do the requirements of how we want to build this new show, right? And then when you're done, you go to implement. Now time has gone. Let's say the analysis took 2 months. you built out the program, it took another 2 months, and then you go
Nobody
to
even remembers what they were going to do on it.
yeah, and then maybe someone has come up with your idea and they were 2 months early. So suddenly you've lost your advantage. So it was very, very like finish one stage before the next, right? And it took a lot of time. And by the time you launched, everyone maybe didn't like what you launched because it's too old, or maybe you didn't get quick feedback from your customers to test and learn. However, in Agile, we look at saying like, hey, what we need to do is what can we give our customers right now
Right?
that they can at least start to chew on and use while we figure out the rest. Because why? You give it to the customer, they can give you feedback while you're working on the stuff, and it lets you understand what they really want. So with Agile, you're able to launch your products faster by breaking them down into smaller batches, right? So
So
rather
when
than
you say smaller batch, are you talking about like a functionality? It has a few
yeah, one
functions in
feature.
it.
Yeah,
Think
yeah,
of it like building blocks.
yeah.
So it has something, and can those blocks be pulled out and put into something else?
Yeah, so
It-
it's like okay, I have these 50 features that I want to launch, right? I know this is what I want,
Okay,
but it's going to take me, let's say, 1 year. Rather than waiting for 1 year, it's like of these 5 features, can we rank them all and prioritize them based on the value they give?
got
And
it.
then rather than thinking of the whole, we can say maybe every 2 weeks or every 1 month, we could release a set of features, get people excited about it, keep using it, and then we start to build like you're right.
Oh,
Look at
wait a
that.
minute. You're talking about releasing one thing at a time and let it integrate, let people use a feature. It could look like you have everything built. So it looks like the whole ship is ready to roll out. But
Mhm.
what happens in the visual appearance of it? Does it look like it's all
It
there?
doesn't look like it's all built. Like I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Do you use threads? You know,
Yes.
okay. So think about it, right? Like threads launch, and threads kind of is similar to Twitter, but we know it's not a fully functional Twitter, right? It kind
Right.
of looks like it, but
It
it's
does look like it, but it's not quite it.
not quite it, right? So, think about it like that. They just launched and said, you know what, let's get people using this. It looks like it, but it doesn't have everything Twitter has.
Interesting. So
You can
so over time they will
They
add
will
more
then add
features
more,
in it.
add more. So that's how we
And
do it, right? Yeah. Because if they wanted to
and
launch
you
a
bring up
Twitter,
a really good point, Pamela,
yeah.
because back in the day, you had to have the whole thing done. Then you tested it, and long before in go back, test, go back, test, go
Mhm.
back, test, go back, test, go back, and then finally limited launch because you don't know if it can scale yet. The, creating today has got to be so much more complicated because one, you've got a more demanding audience, and you also have a very sophisticated competitive environment. You're
Yeah,
competing for talent, you're competing for
exactly.
eyeballs, you're competing for attention.
Yeah. I like how you said complex because exactly. Scrum works well with very complex deliverables, very complex products and projects, right? Because you can't know everything. So why don't you start from what you know, deliver that, and then keep building on top of it gradually. That way, you're not losing any advantage. Actually, you're learning. And if the market shifts, like think about how AI is all the rage right now.
And only out for a year, and
Exactly, and it's just
look at
taking
its
over,
impact.
right? And so, like, people need to be able to pivot. Like, if I was going to launch an app and I hadn't factored in AI and I already, was sold on the idea, I would have to be able to pivot and say, how can we integrate AI now that it's such a big thing, right? So that's what Agile helps you. It allows you to also change because you're not sold on the full picture of what you wanted. It's like, let's launch this. We're launching. We're adding on stuff. Now AI is here and our customers are asking for it. We
And
gotta.
they're asking for it. They want it. In fact, they're not just asking for it. They expect it. Oh, you don't have AI. I'll go someplace else.
Yeah, exactly. So it allows you to launch things faster, smaller, and then also allows you to be adaptable to changes in the market.
Oh my goodness. Well, that sounds pretty. That is complex just in just the thinking of it. Tell me how Scrum and Agile work together.
Good. So we always say that think of agile like it's the philosophy, right?
Hmm.
So it's philosophical. It doesn't tell you exactly how to do it. It just tells you like, listen, Um, Agile would say things like we need to focus more on collaborating because for us to deliver faster, like the team has to be collaborative, right? The business people who came up with the idea and the tech people need to be speaking, talking together so that work on they can work faster, right? We need to
Right.
be able to get faster feedback, right? Like, and then it's not about contract negotiation. So it's not about saying like I want this app and I want it in 6 months. It's about um let's see what we can do, right? Where can we make changes? You get feedback, then you change, and and then you can build, right? So really, if we think about it like that, then this is a much better way for people to work together. So Agile itself would just lay out philosophically how it should be done, right? But Scrum itself is a specific framework that is under Agile. So in Scrum, it has specific roles. If you think about roles and responsibilities, it has specific roles, it has specific events, and then it has what we call specific artifacts. So while Agile is philosophical and says this is how we should be doing stuff, right? This is what we should be doing. Scrum
Okay.
itself goes specifically to say these are the roles that are needed in this team to be able to do stuff. Like, what are those three roles?
So one is philosophical. I want to be able to drive, and I'm
Yeah.
thinking about going from here to there. But
Hmm.
Scrum says you're going to use these streets, and
Yeah.
this
Specific.
is the
Yeah.
direction for you to go east, and then
Yeah.
go north, and then go east. Or if you're going to take a different path, then I have to reroute you like a GPS.
100%. And just
Got
one
it.
important thing to point out is that Agile has so many different frameworks under it that you can choose. Scrum is one of them. There's so many others. It's just that Scrum is one of the quickest and lightweight ones to implement. There's other different Agile frameworks such as Kanban, Extreme Programming, Lean, Skilled Agile. There's like all of them are all Agile frameworks. And so every company, every team or organization would choose what framework best works for them, where Scrum is one of the most popular frameworks to use.
Now I'm reading that you have trained, uh, and I don't know how old is your company, Redlux Consulting?
One
How old?
1 year. But I've been coaching and mentoring before, like really launching this on a like this is
Oh
my
my
first.
goodness!
Yes, I've been doing this
So,
pro bono.
but Redlux in just a year has trained over 3,000 learners,
Yep.
finished
Yep.
1.9 thousand sessions.
Yeah,
How are you?
yeah, so prior to this, right? So we're looking at the totality of all of the work that had been done prior to Redlux being an actual like for-profit company.
Okay. So you tested it out and you used your own philosophy, your own agile, your own scrum. You did this to master your own application for your
Yeah.
own organization. Who uses, I mean, what kind of people come and train? I mean, who are they? Where do they go? What companies do they go to?
So usually this is a lot of people want to transition to technology because we know that technology is going to be evergreen, is going to be relevant, right? So there's
Right.
people who are in roles that are not technology focused and they want transition to technology easy because the good thing about being a scrum master means that you don't really need to have coding skills, right? There's transferable skills from your previous
Well,
job.
no, and especially if I can go to AI now and have AI write the program language for it, and I could tell it what language I want it to do.
Yeah.
I'm not going to suggest that anybody does that, but I have heard that, so you too could be a coder and have AI write your code for you. But where and what kind of applications are these people that are learning this process and this philosophy? Where are they going?
So also a lot of them work at, some of the I have clients here in Canada, in America, in Nigeria, and the UK, right? So a lot of them work at the big banks, a lot of them work for telecom companies and fintechs and all of that, right? And so
Right.
like, so if you're looking to transition technology, that's the way to go.
So
Also very
somebody that was looking to improve their skills so they can become
yeah,
more marketable and more
exactly.
competitive,
Yeah.
either keep their job or get a better one or move to
Oh,
another company.
get a better job too, right? Keep yeah, you're right. Like, new skills, like they want to upskill and show like, hey, I'm constantly learning, or they want to earn more. Or another sector is I'm an immigrant. I moved, right? I was fortunate I've been in technology before I moved. But as people moving to new countries who want to get new skills so that they can actually get better jobs, right? And so lots of my clients are also newcomers in Canada, in the UK, in the US, who are looking for um, a way to upskill fast and get a job that meets their needs.
They would be able to learn your course. So you offer these virtually, correct?
Yes, they're all virtual, all online. Then they're very practical. The way we teach is not, it's not all theoretical. Like they actually get to wear the Scrum Master hat and really do what they would do in a real life situation.
So, are you able to assimilate or create applications, or does what you teach just talk about the philosophy or the
Oh no.
practicality?
Yeah, no, we do they actually have to build. So what we do is, because in a simulation exercise, not that people don't have they don't have like but we don't have developers or coders there. They're actual people who want to become scrum masters. So we look for like the whole idea is they're understanding philosophy, they're understanding what the scrum role is about. They also understand how to go about the events, day-to-day events as they happen in the office. And then one of the outcomes of the work they do is that they actually build a simple website, right? Like an interactive website, but using that philosophy of scrum, like looking at what if we have this much time to deliver the work, what can we deliver every 2 weeks? So really using that whole agile mindset
Oh, that's
to
pretty cool because you don't have to think about delivering the whole thing all
yes.
at one time. You're getting something out there so somebody's getting into and using the application and then improve it.
Yeah,
Keep improving
exactly.
it.
So that's
So
what they do, right? And then one of the things that people are like, oh, how are you sure? Like, some people have always like confused, like, am I sure I can really simulate this in practice? And they find out that when they actually go into the simulation, like all that team dynamic that exists today, like conflicts, not being sure what you're doing, all happen even though in a simulation. And sometimes when they're building, they get into that same headache that the actual teams have, which is like, what do we build first in 2 weeks? What can we build, right? Otherwise, they would get stuck. So really, like, people find that by doing these practice simulations, they actually experience what real scrum teams experience. All those team dynamics all come to play. All the issues that scrum teams see all come to play during this practice simulation.
that's got to be really gratifying for somebody that is used to coming or has come from an environment where they've got to think about the whole application strategically. Everything's going to be laid out. You know exactly where these and meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting of different teams and people. How does this work in a team environment then?
Oh yeah. So first of all, like, you're right, like you said. So, like, we also mentioned, one of the things I wanted to mention is that we also say that being agile is a mindset, right? Because some
Right,
people are used to the old way of working and they don't want to let go, not because they don't like it, but because it can be so difficult to let go of something that you feel works for you, right? Like, why do I
right.
need to change? What about if it does not work for me? What about if we screw things up? Like, like, how am I going to go tell executives that we can't, we're going to be delivering stuff, in small batches, right? It's a whole
Yeah,
mindset.
I would like to hear that conversation at the boardroom, right?
Yeah, like,
We're
I
going to
don't
give
care what you
this
guys
to
are
you, but
saying, right?
you're only going to get 3 of those 10 features, and we're going to see how those
Yeah,
work, okay?
exactly. But like, it's about, if it's positioned from a point of view of, we have this roadmap, right? Like, if we say, like, hey, we have a roadmap, right? And in quarter 1, this is what we're launching, and this is why, because it addresses our largest customer segment, right? And
Right.
and by
Or it's
getting it
our
out
most
there.
profitable
Yeah,
segment.
exactly. And by getting out there, we're making X amount of money. And while we're doing that, we're seeing the numbers, and then we can prioritize the next, right? So it's really about how you position it, right? So I mean, I think that one of the things people find is that when they find out that how Scrum and Agile works, and they're like, I love because about the collaboration between technology and business. Like, they actually then see the work being done, they can get feedback, they can make changes. People actually like Agile better because that way everyone knows what's going on without having to ask questions or without having to have like regular progress updates, right? And
Well,
again,
and let's talk about this for a second because I think that's a shift in the culture of how organizations actually work. I just read an interesting statistic that more than 68% of employees don't want to be back in the office on a regular basis, or now they're having issues about wanting to attend meetings because they lack the kind of productivity, or they lack direction even. How does that impact, and what kind of impact is that having when you're using a technology or a philosophy like agile?
well, I'll tell you, right? Like so because agile works with like so we need to also focus on the fact that agile works on really small teams. So we're not going to say a team is agile and there are 50 people.
Okay,
Communication is not going to happen there. Like so agile teams are really have to be small, right? 10 or less if you can't
which is
share.
great because that's how a lot of these little incubators are working.
Yeah,
You get
exactly.
an app out there,
Yeah.
and it's quick, and you
Yeah.
see a team of sitting at WeWork or something like that,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
they're making their contribution, and I'll walk past a WeWork module or a little node, and you can see that they're working on an application. So I would imagine that when you have a smaller team like this, the ability for them to use a technology like or philosophy like agile can actually make them far more productive
Hundred
faster.
percent, 100%. So that's why it worked for small teams. So you have to organize your Scrum teams in small groups, right? That is where a Scrum Master. So train because we train people to become Scrum Masters, right? And so a Scrum Master is someone who understands Scrum really well, who's been trained, who's gotten certification, who's got years of experience. They're able to guide the team to deliver faster. And it works really well with a virtual team. Actually, I think that during the pandemic, when all of the work was remote, there was like a
When everybody had to
proliferation.
start working
Yeah, like
virtually.
on the proliferation of Scrum, because that was the way to get people to work and talk to each other regularly. Because Scrum had regular, we call them events, but actually meetings, right? Just a fancy way of saying meetings.
We're
But
going to an event, we're not
we'll
going to
have
a
an event,
meeting.
we have a Scrum event. So we would have the
Right.
daily stand up. The daily stand up is a 15-minute call, 50, not more than 15
That's
minutes.
awesome. Oh
It's
my
like
god.
bang, bang, bang. What did you do yesterday? What are you doing today? Do you have any impediments? And we're like, we go, like everyone's on the same page. Like it really helps us set context. We know if we're going to hit our goals, right? At the end of that period, that time period that we have to deliver work is called a sprint. Like you're literally sprinting. So if it's a 2 week sprint, we kind of know if things are going to fall all the off the rails, we already know. Like and then we can actually course correct like okay it's not going well, what do we need to do to make sure that we hit our goals at the end
Oh,
of
but
2 weeks?
what you just said, though, you're doing this in 15-minute increments. I forget who the person is credited with this, but I'm going to say it's McAllister's Law, that you can do more if you have less time, that more things get done with less time. When you know you have a very finite amount of time, there isn't that, the distractions and the things, oh, I'm getting ready to get ready to get ready to get ready. you're
Focus.
you're really focused, and that tight focus says, I only have 15 minutes to get these things done. I need to get in and get out.
Exactly,
The
because
sprint
the
makes
calls
total
are
sense.
only the calls are only for us to know what's going on. The actual work gets done when you're like on your computer on the app, right? Like just check in and see how are things going. Things are going well, or no, I have this issue. I need help from this person. Can we get on a call? Fix this. Continue to do the work, right? So that's the good thing about Scrum. We've got those regular touch points, the 15 minutes daily. Then the good thing about Scrum is that you have one time when the team sits together to plan for that period for the sprint. There's a time to review the work at the end of each duration, which is called the sprint. The team sits together to say how well did we do? Did we meet our sprint goals? Did we meet all of
Did
our
we
goals?
get our goals? Did we meet
Yeah.
our goals?
And if
That's
they
got to
didn't
be
meet,
very
yeah,
gratifying for
yeah.
the
And if they
people that
don't
are
meet
on
their
the
goals,
team.
what do we need to do next? And then the final thing they do is called the retrospective, which is so powerful, which is what did we do well, what didn't we do well, and how can we change, and there's action items that come out of those retrospective sessions that keep the team constantly improving. So with these regular events, like I said, that are in place, the team doing that very often that way, they're more efficient and they do quality work.
I can't believe that our time is
Oh
up.
my,
Oh my God, we have been chatting here for looks like almost an hour.
I can't believe it
I
myself.
can't believe this either. This is like, where did our time go? I got one last question for you. How are you? How are you going to spend the holidays?
Oh, it's going to be a quiet one. It's going to
Without
be a
your
quiet one.
computer? Without
Yeah,
your
no,
computer?
yeah, because I told my team, I have a social media team, and I was like, you know what? I don't want to look at my social media, like get everything done, schedule it. I don't want to talk to you guys until January. Please. I need to rest. So it's gonna be a quiet one. We've already decorated. I'm big on Christmas, so my house will
Oh,
already decorated by November. So it's just gonna be like, time with the family. It's gonna be very cold in Canada, but we're gonna enjoy the snow. Go to a couple of Christmas markets, invite friends over for a meal. And fun thing, my daughter who's in competitive gymnastics, she's participating in the Santa Claus parade tomorrow in my
yay.
Hamilton. So we're looking forward to that.
That's awesome. Well, Pamela, thank you so much for being a guest with me today. I cannot tell you, I had no idea how intricate and how productive what you do is using the agile philosophy and Scrum. Thank you so much for
Thank you
helping
so
us
much for having
understand
me.
how we're getting a faster, better world at our fingertips. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I
My
appreciate it.
pleasure. Thank you. I want to thank you all for today and for every time that you show up to watch this show. If you'd like to join me, let me know. I know everybody's got something to say, and we all want to have that 5 minutes in the sun. Come have it with me. Thank you for joining. Because if you market something really, really well, you never have to sell. Do you like to talk about money? If you do and you'd like to be a guest, contact me at lindakay360.com.